let's call the City of Marine City Commission meeting to order. Marine City Fire Hall, Thursday, October 17th. 7, yeah. Could we please have a moment of silence for our dearly departed? And let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Here.
Commissioner Bryson.
Here.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan.
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Commissioner Merchant.
Here.
Commissioner Burkaman.
Here.
City Manager Love. Here.
All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. Just reminding everyone about approving the agenda. If there's something in the consent agenda that you want to discuss, please ask to have it moved into 11.
And we do have one item that I recommend adding is item I, the video franchise agreement for Comcast.
So can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to public comment. Anyone in attendance is welcome to address the City Commission. Please state your name and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. This is a time for you to raise issues. The Commission will not respond, but the issues will be followed up upon as necessary. Anyone like to speak? Hearing none. Moving on to approval of the minutes. City Commission regular minutes, October 3rd, 2019. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Any corrections or deletions to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to City Commission closed session minutes, October 3rd, 2019. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Since we can't discuss this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bryson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Merchant.
Yes.
Commissioner Burkaman.
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to the financial business, including disbursements, which include payroll for $1,157,818.21.
I make a motion to approve disbursements including payroll for $1,157,018.21.
Support.
Any questions on this? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Merchant.
Yes.
Commissioner Burkaman.
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving down to unfinished business. The design proposal for 260 South Parker.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Gasson with Partners in Architecture, and I'm pleased to be here. I'm going to share with you some information that's unfolded over a period of weeks and months of collaborating and coming up with a plan to revitalize the building and repurpose it for city offices. I believe you do have a package of information, or at least the beginning of a package of information, if it's okay.
They've been provided a copy of the concept floor plan and the site plan.
Okay. If it's okay, I would like to distribute the same thing, but different version, or not version, but format, is size and color. If that's okay. All right. And shortly, larger boards will be here and on easels before you. Imagine before I get around the table here.
Yep. I can pass.
I'll work on that side.
Hi, how you doing?
Fully on. Try not to land on the table here by tripping on the cords.
Thank you.
Anyone absent that I might leave you an extra copy to distribute later?
No, I think it's here.
So hopefully this color version, a slightly larger scale, is a little bit more legible. Maybe you could look at it as we kind of walk through the plan together, and then if you have any questions, well, actually, anytime you have a question, just feel free to ask. The site plan, the first sheet here, basically leaves the building footprint intact. That's the blue L-shape element, and the parking along the top from right to left is the existing paved area, and the paving and parking spaces indicated along the left going to the bottom are all proposed as new, expanding parking capacity and also providing circulation throughout the full site to one public street to another. The improvements we looked at in terms of overall site were a couple of things. One, things relatively adjacent to the building, and then the site parking, as I just pointed out. There's going to be some improvements planned, or at least there are planned, for some of the existing parking, and that is limited to the area that we've designated for handicap accessibility, and then indications getting it safely across the vehicle maneuvering lane to the building walk. And that walk, which is also an L shape and it's a light gray, right along that top side of the new City Hall, that would be a replaced paved area due to condition that it's in now. And there's also some exterior railing, guard railing, to help alleviate any kind of fall over the edge of that where it gets to be a little bit more in excess than just a step. And there's some also repairs planned at the masonry enclosure for the trash, which is kind of in the center up towards the top. There's a lot of things on the site that are existing right now that could go another level of improvement, repair, or replacement even. But based on looking at this from a more frugal standpoint, we looked at those things that were absolute need and included those, and that there are some that could just be at a deferment, but you'd have to be mindful to plan for those in the future. And we do have those itemized. Any questions on the site plan? It was pretty straightforward. Yes, ma'am.
What I noticed is where the big meeting room is going to be, it's going to be in the back.
Correct.
And I'm looking at the parking there. Is there any discussion about having a door towards the back and maybe one handicap in the back so that it would be closer to that meeting room?
I have a little bit to add to that.
Please do.
Further discussions with our DPW director, we really determined that a dumpster enclosure is not necessary. And I know one of the things that we were working around on this site plan was to be able to have access to that dumpster for a truck. So one of the plans that we had looked at one point in time did have some parking, kind of where you can see a car on the north side of the building right now. So I think we can probably refine that parking just a little bit more and get rid of the dumpster enclosure, and then that will also save a little bit more costs as well.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Azar. Azar Mahdi is an associate of mine in the firm, a designer working on the projects. He's going to set up those boards maybe for the public to see. It's basically the same thing that I've handed out to you. Thank you for that explanation. Maybe this is a good time just to expand a little bit on the concept here. This is, as you said, it could tweak a little bit. Where we are right now in the phase of trying to understand your opportunities with this property and even exploring through some of the limitations are, here's a concept. and it's going to tweak quite a bit. Even if you're ready to say, this is what we want to do, it's going to tweak from a technical perspective and maybe even from a planning perspective once we kind of visit the commission with it. But all in all, what we've done here is talked about a concept and a magnitude of scope of the kind of things you'd have to do and ultimately what kind of price range it would be. So yes, the tweaks are going to happen as we go to the next levels of development. Any other questions on the site?
You know, keeping the handicap like you were talking about has them coming into that lobby area, right? So that's good, because then it gives them an extra, like, look for security, instead of just coming in off the back, right into the meeting room.
Yeah, we've moved the handicap parking kind of a couple times based on some design changes over the last couple weeks. And one of the things that we recognize is the fact that we, in essence, have two separate uses of this building. We have the office space in the front and then the meeting space in the back. So just trying to be able to work everything and work around the dumpster and really taking a close look at it and talking to Mike, conversations about, do we really need a dumpster at this location or not? Currently, what we do is DPW comes and takes the trash and they take it to their dumpster that's in their locked, secure location. So we've decided that that's really what we would continue doing with this building.
The only question I had about a door in the rear is because we have all this parking back here, and they'd have to walk way down and around to get in over here. So that's my only concern when we have a big meeting, that everybody that's parking back here's got to walk so far to get in. If we had one more access door in the back, I would think that would alleviate some of that.
There is a
issue.
door down by where that yellow box is. It's the pad for the future generator.
Oh, you got one way in the back there?
Yeah, there is a door there. As far as use of it, that's in essence going to be behind where the council table would be. It's not something that I think we would use on a normal basis. It is something I've talked to the clerk about, that for something like that, more than likely, because of space constraints for elections, we'd have people come in through the front and then go out through that door.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the distance they got to go to get into this door way around here, and you're parking here, especially like during an election, and that if we had something a little bit more convenient, just you could use the door in the event of those type of situations. You wouldn't have to use the door all the time.
Right.
But I think when you were having an election or you were having a big meeting, you would want to try to come something off here so that they weren't having to go all the way around.
Yep, there is a door there, and we'll be keeping it.
That's an excellent point. There, maybe not just the existing, but maybe closer to the back where it's more like a sense of arrival and near the lobby restroom.
More behind the seating area.
Correct. Yeah. That certainly is an
There's a
option.
gap there.
And the other point regarding the barrier-free, yeah, like Elaine said, we did look at a couple different options, and it really is situated where you can have one protected crosswalk that gets you in between both the main entry to City Hall and the main entry into the multi-purpose space. But it really wouldn't hurt as you feel out how this building gets utilized, and maybe even put that second entry in, that you put a dedicated barrier-free in the back. It certainly makes sense to me. And usually, the required amount of spaces doesn't meet the real need when you look at overall parking and how many handicap spaces you provide, so extra doesn't hurt, in my opinion.
Do you have a copy of this with dimensions?
You know, I think we probably hid some of that just to kind of keep it clean and simple as a graphic, but I think the answer is yes.
Okay, because I was just wondering the size of that room, like, compared to this.
Oh, you mean, I thought you meant the site plan.
Footage.
Oh,
No,
for sure we do.
like all the rooms and stuff.
Yes, for sure we do have that,
Okay.
yeah. So moving on, I'll use that as my segue to go to the plan. So as you've probably gathered, the overall use of the building, the footprint's the same. The geometry was a little bit limiting, but we had a couple major criteria that we were trying to satisfy. One was that for City Hall functions, a public person, a user, would come to City Hall and be able to have a real sense of orientation right when walking in, and then most of the workers within the City Hall would have some sort of sight line to them to kind of cover each other if someone was away from the immediate front desk. And that led us to a couple different variations of this plan. But primarily that meant the lobby wasn't at either front point of the building, meaning the tip at the bottom of the L or the tip at the right of the L. It kind of moved off center or off end to center, so you'd have that kind of 180 orientation when you walked in, not just by the user, but by the occupant employees. So that's why that lobby is where it is. And you can see the open office area gives, at least 4 people immediate eyesight and ready access to help someone that comes in at the front counter. And then the 4 offices around that have somewhat of a sight line to that front counter in the event someone's not at the open office area. And then the conference room for public consumption and also for primarily the office staff is somewhat near the front of the building layout. We looked at this building with a real sensitive eye to, there's a lot here. Can we use what's here versus tearing something down and rebuilding it? Primarily, there's a couple big walls, and it's segmented to city offices, storage, and then multi-purpose. Those 3 major components are separated by existing walls, which made sense, and we did a little test for fit based on the programmatic need of those areas, and it worked out pretty well. And it wasn't our first shot. We kind of maneuvered through a couple different scenarios before we landed on that. The second thing was looking at the infrastructure, the plumbing, electrical panels, so we didn't have to move major things. And the plumbing in the center of the building, which is really kind of on the bottom there, that's existing restroom, shower room, locker rooms for the facility as it is now. We looked at reutilizing that just for the purposes of sanitary. We did, however, have to add other restroom facilities for the other functions that were going to happen in the overall building. One up near the front lobby for public use, and then one in the multi-purpose room area for public meetings, activities, and gatherings, and so forth. But we were very mindful of that and trying to limit the amount of redo and really optimize what's there right now. And I think this plan really satisfied that criteria pretty well. The overall plan, I think, was need. The program was filled the building. There wasn't anything really extra in the plan. And that included a little bit of a vision looking forward. We really tried to plan for about a 20-year, the need, what might happen. So this gives you a little bit of a flexibility for that, but the building wasn't oversized for the program that you had in mind, at least as we discovered it through a couple work sessions. The infrastructure outside of the plumbing, mechanical primarily, the units were in fairly good shape, although the distribution is going to change quite a bit. And we accounted for that, not necessarily in graphic form, but in budgeting. There are a couple of things in terms of the envelope, the exterior skin of the building, windows, doors, siding, roofing. We looked at all of that in terms of what we might need to do. Again, we took that same approach. What do you absolutely have to do right now as compared to what you might want to do and what you'll need to do in the future. So we kind of took that frugal approach again in terms of how do we budget and include work in the scope right now. And there was basically siding replacement and repair in some areas, very limited. Window replacements, and where we could, it was a 1-for-1, but in a couple instances, I think at 3, we had to make new holes to put new windows, and that really was just for daylight and occupied areas, primarily in the offices and the lobby. And where we could, where we put in new doors, outside doors, we put them where windows were, so we weren't completely having to add structure for lintels. We were just extending the opening down from sill to the ground. Again, that was, trying to capitalize on what you had and be as frugal as we could when we came down to budgeting. Any questions on the planning process?
Yeah, I'm going to ask, the storage building is a big area. Did you guys look at rail storage racks?
We did.
They'll take half of that room away with storage.
We didn't look at it from a pure budgetary standpoint. You're absolutely right. You can condense storage down to about 25% of the foot area. But those systems come at, for a room of this size, probably in the $50,000 to $60,000 range just to get a high-density storage system. The thought was, and we did have an inventory of what you currently have, and we accommodated that in the future, if you need to expand for some other function space, that you can then use a high-density storage to then capitalize on that square footage.
I notice you have a secure storage area, and I see where the door is to get in there. Is that like really not convenient for you guys to have to go all the way around?
That would be in essence for the election equipment and the meeting notes.
Safe,
Right, and the
yeah.
safe.
But it's a long hike to go around. Is there any chance of putting another access point for you guys to get in there a little easier than? I'm just looking at how far you gotta travel to get to it if you need to get in there.
It's not something that would be utilized that often. You know, we
Well.
go to the safe a couple times a day, maybe. And then the meeting minutes, I don't think that Chris really has to go there that often. She usually
Okay.
keeps the most current
As
ones.
long as you want your
in her
walking
office.
shoes.
It's far
Yeah.
closer and easier than what we deal with now.
Yeah, for the most part, the storage that you would think of as office operation storage is going to occur in the workroom, which is centrally located in the plan. So people within the work area that need to get to something that would be, I'll call it office supply storage, are going to be able to get to it relatively easy. And as Elaine was saying, that is, I won't call it dead storage, but it's storage that is more seasonal than
Yeah.
active. Yeah, this is not perfect. Again, we were optimizing and sticking within the footprint, and a linear anything isn't efficient in most senses, because you have to go from one end to the other. You want to be more nucleus-oriented, so square or round is better. But I think this really does seize the opportunities where they are, and deals with the limitations as we had to.
I was very impressed with their quality of work. They came in and did interviews of all of the employees to talk about their space, their needs, what they have in their immediate area that is essential and non-essential. We did measurements for all of the furniture, all of the storage and equipment and everything that we have, and we're able to come up with a design that I think really captured everything that we need, especially in a tight area. Talking about future need space and the opportunity to grow into this space as we potentially become more digital and can potentially digitize some of the documentation that we have, getting rid of some of that storage. At some point in time, if, say, we brought on more staffing, we could get rid of part of that storage, make that our conference room back there, convert conference room into another office space. So that's the kind of stuff that we have been thinking about.
I have some budget information if you'd like me to distribute that.
Thank you.
Yeah, dangerous here.
Almost made it. The important thing is format here, just so you won't get confused. I want to go through that really quickly. The first sheet summarizes the whole picture, and then the subsequent sheets breaks down the big line items so you can kind of see what level of inclusion we had in terms of line items per area. So the major things we're looking at, it's kind of how I described it. We have the site area work, we have the interior renovations, modifications, and the new things that have been added, exterior envelope or the building shell improvements that we're going to need to do, and then infrastructure, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So those are the major things, and you could break that down in a lot of different other line items, and that's what the second sheets represent. And usually, it generally follows that heading: site, interior, exterior, mechanical, electrical, or infrastructure. Below that, first blue line, a colored line, which represents, here's your sub-trade cost we feel for all those four categories to do the work, which is just under $450,000, $448,000 is what we estimate that at. And that's not your total cost from a construction perspective. There are other elements, and I'm going to go through those really quickly. General conditions to perform the construction, so that's direct expenses relative to subcontracting. That would be something like your site supervisor, the project manager for the contracting entity, and their efforts to actually move things along with the subtrades. And it's broken out really specifically because when you start reviewing potential builders, you'll want to know how much, I'll call that overhead to some extent, how much of their effort is overhead as compared to really delivering a product to you. Then the next item is contractors' overhead and profit, which is purely their profit. And that's an estimate at 5%. It varies a little bit in the marketplace, depends on a lot of different things, geographic area, size of a project, and this is reasonable for this size of project, the type of project, and seasonally, when is it happening? So if this is going to move forward, say winter or spring, that's relatively right. If it goes into spring, summer, that's going to ratchet up. That'll be busy time, everyone's got a lot of opportunity, and an interior job is attractive to some contractors. But I think this is going to have interest of certain kind of contractors, and that may stay more steady than a bigger picture type of contract or construction project. And then estimating contingency. That is, based on where we are right now, we're thinking there's high level. So there's a lot of things that could happen in the marketplace as well as in the work that we've done. Maybe we've missed something in our dialogue that, oh, we really need that. And right now, maybe it's not in the job. So I think of that as a number that doesn't go away. It rolls up into the project. So if we were perfect on our estimating, don't think of this as not 448,000 minus the 45. It's going to wind up being above that line is the way we see it. And the other elements of the budget are things that you need to think about as an owner doing a project. They're not just construction costs. So when you're all said and done with construction, you'll say, wow, there was other things we had to pay for. We want you to be mindful of those now, so we indicate them. So there's a contingency that you should have for a couple of things. One, oops, no one knew that was above the ceiling, or no one knew that was in the floor, and it's got to get paid for somehow. So you need to have a responsible reserve for that. And the other thing is you may find a real opportunity that no one thought of during design that, man, we got to do this, like maybe the door in the back. We're talking about it now, but had we not, during maybe the paving in that back parking lot, you might have said, well, we really want to add a door. So that contingency would cover some potential changes that you, the owner, might want to implement that you didn't do in the first go-round. That gives you a little bit of latitude to do that. Professional fees, legal fees, architectural, engineering, construction testing, all those things, surveying that you'll need to have done, asbestos analysis and reporting, all those things that you're going to ask someone else to do. Maybe you even have some on-staff people that can assist in those areas, but you need to think of it as a way to cover that cost. And that's reasonable, and I really push that down to be tight because I did the same thing when we were looking at the budget. So that's a frugal approach. Other owner soft costs are things that are going to happen that you're going to want to be able to cover. Reimbursable expenses, printing, promotional things, the project sign, maybe a grand opening, kind of something party or something where you want to have some costs to take care of things like that. That truly is one of those things, if you don't spend it, you just put it back in your general fund for something else or whatever fund you're going to use to do the building. So all in all, that's the way we arrived at what you might want to look at as a probable project cost in total. There are some things here that we could have included that we don't, not because we didn't want to exclude them, but we didn't have the dialogue at a detailed level to say, yeah, we want to do it, but just be thinking of it. Furnishings, you may move some based on what we saw. We did a little inventory. There's probably some movable things, but there's probably going to be a need to address that with some new stuff too. And then technology, you can look at that in a lot of different ways. What we've included here is technology from point A to point B. Within the building, you're going to have to get your network from here to there. That's in our infrastructure number. What you put on the end point of A and what you put on the end point of B, your hardware is not included in here. And that might be some of those things you just pick up and move with you when you're moving into your new space. But you might want to consider having a technology sidebar during the course of really developing the design because you may want to add something new. So those items aren't included in this number. And the breakdown, as best we could, we gave enough information that you get a sense of what's included and maybe what's not included if you're looking for something specific, but I think we were pretty comprehensive in putting it together.
Do you have an estimated time of this project?
I would say the overall construction timeframe in a single phase, which this should be, is going to be about 5 months. And I'll call it the wild card is when you start, that 5 months may stretch. Let's say you start in December, well, all of a sudden you could do that. That 5 month may stretch because you can't do the paving until May or anyway, so then that's going to push out a little bit. There's nothing else about this project that's long lead to me. It's not all commodity and off the shelf either. Nowadays, almost everything is made to order. It's not, next day delivery. So you have to plan for that. And depending on how you go about delivering the project in terms of contracting it, that could have a little impact on it too. For the most part, the quicker they could finish, the better off they are from a financial standpoint, and which ultimately means the better price you've paid.
I think it looks great. I think you guys did a great job with, figuring out what everybody's needs were. I mean, I look at prints a lot. I've done a lot of construction projects in my time, and I think this looks really good.
This is just a rendering that you're giving us now. The drawings, are they done by your company, or do we hire an engineer?
Well, we do it all in-house. We have sub-consultants for our engineering, so it's all under our envelope. So mechanical engineering, for instance, is through us, but it's not in our office necessarily.
What about the travel distance? You're going to give that to us too? Exit travel distance?
Oh, yeah, a part of our development plan, when we do, I'll call it the construction documents, we'll have a code analysis plan, and it'll go through all aspects of the code. I think we call it life safety plan, is what we call it. Yeah, that's kind of our everyday thing. For you that don't know a little bit about our company, we're an architectural design company who we stress service. We definitely deliver, I'll call it technically high-level documents with a design excellence, but we back our company with a service orientation and attitude. And our market is public work. 95% of what we do is for municipalities, village, township, cities, county government, state government, federal government. That's the arena that we work in. So we're very comfortable, and we have a really good finger on the pulse of how it works.
I guess my only other question is, how is this on our budget?
It works.
Okay.
So right now, our fund balance is 1.4. Our audit, I don't even know if I want
Yeah.
to spill the news on this yet, but
That's fine.
our surplus for this year looks like it's going to be $400,000. A lot of that had to do with TIFA, purchasing the building, stuff like that. So in essence, at the end of this fiscal year, or this past fiscal year, fund balance is about 1.8.
Okay, so we're covered.
Yeah, we're-
When is the estimated time to start?
That would depend on you guys. So one of the things that we need to talk about is what our next steps are. In essence, contracting to get the plans drawn, and then determining what we're going to do as far as contracting this job out, if we go with a general contractor, or if we have Partners in Architecture act as our contractor for this project. I think that's where we're at now. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's, like you were leading into, there's a couple different avenues to go. We're ready to start if you're ready for us to start. Thinking ahead a little bit, I looked at what our schedule would be. We'd be maybe ready to, say, bid the thing for construction in the middle of December. So you'd have it just after the first of the year, once contracts were in place, mobilization and kind of the startup on a contracting entity, beginning of the year. And as you were saying, there's a couple different ways. You could do it a general contractor. That's very common for this kind of project. The extreme would be, let's say, a construction management approach, where you would hire as an independent contractor consultant that would then in turn subcontract all the different disciplines and then hold different contracts instead of one, which is a little, I'll say, elaborate for a project of this size. And then there's also a design build delivery, which I think might be really ripe for a project like this, where someone would be the designer and a builder and commit to a guaranteed price. So you know before you get too far into this, this is our total exposure. You could also do that with the CM approach, and we've done both of those very successfully, where the CM joins the team now and becomes our partner, let's say, and then together we represent one single entity to you, and then also could guarantee it. You don't have to go that way. You can kind of let it roll until you find out what trade costs are. But if you're really wanting to hone in on, here's our dollar limit, and we don't want to spend any more than that, you guys control it, manage it, and guarantee it, that would maybe be an option to you to say go with a hybrid of the CM design build.
Are we still not expecting it to be vacant until January 1st, or you don't know?
It's probably going to be closer to January 1st, yes.
Okay. But we can do all the preliminary everything, just to be ready so that when it opens up, we can get in there and get started.
Plans all put together and bid out and ready to go.
Yeah.
There's no reason we couldn't start doing some of these site improvements, in essence, prior to doing any of the building work.
Well, some of your site improvements are weather dependent.
Yep.
Right.
So there won't be a weather dependent. I mean, rarely will we be able to do a whole lot here outside of it in this January, December, depending.
Yep.
Would we do all our inspections in-house, or would it be a conflict of interest?
How did we do it on the last project you and I worked together on? Just so you
In-house.
know, I worked on another municipal building with this firm. I think we handled those in-house.
In-house, yes.
Yes.
And to me, maybe I can direct through the chair to the question. I think it's better for you because your best interest is at hand. And from the other side, there is no perception of conflict of interest because everyone's looking for the win-win. But generally, you're looking for the best thing that you could possibly get. So I'd say it's a good thing. And I do a lot of these with entities that have their own jurisdictional review, and I don't think I've ever had to go outside of the, except for a school district. They did outside the school district one time. So the timeline, if I could just expand a little bit on that, if you're the real sweet spot for getting the best price from a sub-trade is before Christmas or even in November, because they're trying to line up work for next spring. In this case, it's, I want to be out of the cold. I want to be working inside. So if you can line something up before the winter gets here, you're gonna get the best price. It's not going to be like slashed pricing, but if you get 3, 4, 5% better, you're doing pretty good. And then the other factor is that about mid-January, manufacturers up their prices anyway. So you don't want to be faced with that when a subcontractor knows that, oh yeah, I'm going to get hit with an increase in January anyway, unless they could place their orders by the end of the year. So that's, it doesn't always work out that way, but it's ideal if you could capitalize on that.
The contract structure that we did the last time was the one with the guaranteed number,
Yes.
and with you managing the project under one contract.
Correct.
And I think it worked out very well for the community. We had an old structure, and we built around it, and we never shut down.
Yep.
And it came to the penny or 2 pennies less.
$146.53.
Was it?
Yes.
So do you have all your costs figured in if we went with you or not?
Well, that is the way we would do it. We would have one single price. There wouldn't be any kind of variable to it.
Okay.
That's, again, what we're trying to do is make it as simple and clearly understood as possible when we do it that way.
Yeah, it was a well put together contract. It worked out very well.
Yeah, whoever wrote the contract did a great job.
I just assumed.
Okay. I'll take that.
But
What was that,
I
Bill?
said, I'm sure we have competent people. I just want to make sure there was no conflict.
There wouldn't be a conflict. In fact, it would be
Money.
almost the opposite.
Right, we save some money.
So there is no legal conflict in having our staff perform the inspections.
So what do you need from us now?
Probably a motion to move forward to,
To a draft contract?
yeah.
To allow me to meet with David and.
To allow you to set up a contract?
Right.
Is that it?
And then the contract would come back here for approval.
Right.
I'll make that motion.
Support?
We got motion, support. Any questions on it?
Nope, I think, I hope this is gonna, I mean, to me, this is gonna work a lot better out than what we have.
Yep.
And it's gonna finally resolve the issue once and for all. And I think it's in a better location for our community. And, it's better located with all the other buildings that we have, so.
And this won't be this is, we're not spending anything on this
No
one.
roll
Okay.
call.
If there's any other questions on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
For your
Thank you.
time tonight, appreciate it, I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Okay. Next, moving on to personnel policies and procedures.
From our previous meeting, or maybe even the one before that, I was instructed to work with the HR attorney to draft a internet usage or even electronic media usage policy for our personnel policy and procedure manual. Went through a couple different iterations of something and worked it down to something that is not overly burdensome, but does cover the aspects of both personal and business use of the computer systems, including everything from email, Facebook posting, texting, any videos, anything like that. The policy is pretty short and sweet. It does allow for us to monitor really anything at any time, and certainly restrict a lot of the things that you typically see as illegal in the workplace. Any type of fraud, pornography, anything like that. So at this point, I would just be looking for a motion to approve that internet usage policy. This would be just inserted in the recently approved Personnel Policy and Procedure Manual. In addition to that, there was also requests from a couple commissioners to revisit the sick policy that we passed at the previous meeting that limited the maximum payout for sick hours bank. That at one point in time was unlimited, and we changed the language in there that in no case shall any employee retired or resigned be paid out for more than 288 hours. So I have included that language here for your review as well.
You want to handle these separately or together?
We can handle the internet electronic use policy first.
Do that first.
Can I get a motion to approve the internet policy?
I make a motion to approve the internet policy for electronic systems and internet usage.
Support.
Any questions on that one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on then to the sick leave.
What do we need here? I mean, do you just need conversation? Do you need?
I don't know if you're looking for a change in language. Some of the concerns that were brought to me were that we had existing employees, that this in essence took away a benefit that they felt that they had earned and should still be able to retain that benefit. The existing policy has a lot of language in it that limits certain items that you add after a date that are only applicable to employers that are, in essence, hired after that date. So anyone that was brought in would have, in essence, a different set of rules from an earlier date. So that's one of the potential options that I heard, is that we could make this effective for employees hired after this date of September 2nd, 2019, when we last reviewed this. Another potential option that I had heard is potentially raising that threshold to a different number. 288 hours, I think we said was about the equivalent of 3 months of time. Actually, it might be a little bit less than that.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are really kind of the two options, or some combination of the two.
Yes, Lisa.
What about freezing whatever they have now so they don't lose it, and then just not allowing any more? All I'm trying to do is, it's a budgetary thing for me. I don't have a problem with anybody that's already accumulated with Ever, and you say, okay, from this day forward, we freeze that, and they get that when they go, but I'm trying to eliminate accruing a whole lot more. This just means everybody that we have will still accrue it. And then only if you have a new employee is it gonna change. But if you froze it, for anybody that's current, they can freeze whatever they've already accumulated, and they still would get that upon leaving.
Language for something like that could change to, so you have in no case shall they be paid out for more than 288 hours. You could expand upon that language and say, from this day forward, probably the date, either September 2nd or today's date, any time that they already have in their bank, they're entitled to.
That keeps them with whatever they've already.
And then they're not losing anything.
Correct.
Yeah, that's even another option for language.
It's when you deal with statutes, you look at statutes on whether or not they're going to apply prospectively or retroactively. Retroactively is rare in statutes. Prospectively is always generally normal. Here, you're trying to balance. You just don't know how people considered this as a benefit when they accepted or took the positions, right? They looked at this and they said, this is a benefit, and I like this benefit that I can accrue unlimited, and I'm going to take the job accordingly. So you don't know what was in the mindset of the person who accepted the work and continued the work relying on this, and now you're looking at having some retroactive application against it. So you have to balance that. That's where you're at. It's a very tough decision. I understand the concern on the budget, but I also understand the concern of an individual who took and maintained the position based on this being a benefit accrued over time. So you have to kind of think of it. It's a tough issue.
And this is something that if we do get some consensus, I can work on language with the attorney, and we can bring back maybe some options for you to consider.
Yes.
So I've been thinking about this for a few weeks now, and I am all in favor of capping it. I think it's a good idea. I can tell you, for the federal government, they cap the payout for vacation time at 240 hours, and you get nothing for sick leave. But having said that, I also think that for our current employees who are counting on this as part of their retirement, that does them a grave disservice. So I would be in favor of just putting a set a date, and for anyone hired after that date, there's a cap to it. For anyone before that, they were expecting it when they were hired in, they should get it.
So you're looking really at prospective application only. So you draw your line and you say, for all those in the future, this is the benefit. And then you know that when you join the team.
How many right now, there's only 2 basic employees right now that are even over the 200
Two that are relatively close to that threshold, but doing it the way that he's talking about perspective would in essence allow for, I think probably about another half dozen or so that would be able to get up to that limit.
I would just hate to have someone who's been here for 10 or 15 years, who's been counting on this, looking forward to it. So I'm employee X, I've been here 15 years, in 10 years I want to retire. This I've been counting on in order to allow me to retire. All of a sudden it's taken away, well, I'm not going to be very happy. Even if it's capped at some level, I'm still not going to be happy because when I was hired in, it was part of the package per se.
And you may have sacrificed during your work time counting on this. It's just tough issues.
I'm looking at the language that you have here, so I'm looking at the second paragraph where people hired on or after September 2nd would pay 50% of any, so doesn't that conflict with your 288?
Well, that in essence is another limit.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure out what.
That is in no case shall they be paid out for more than 288. So if they have 1,000 hours, they can only be paid out for 50, which is 500, but then you have this extra thing on top that's limiting it to a cap of no more than 288.
There's two levels of inroads into their hours there.
I have to support what Commissioner Bryson was just talking about. I think we've, I know it might, hit our budget pretty hard every year, every now and then, but I don't think it's gonna break us. I don't think this is gonna break us. I think if we do it with, if we say that anybody hired on or after September 2nd, then we can put them into a different level, but the people that we have now who were hired before September 2nd, I think we should leave with give them what they signed on to.
Yeah.
So in essence, to give you a little bit of a perspective, so with the 1,200 hours and the max pay that we have on our rate chart right now would potentially be $20,000. So capping that at the 50% payout is $10,000, but then knocking it down to the 288 could knock it down a little bit more, but I don't think it would make as much of an impact as that 50% knockdown.
Say that, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Say
you
that
lost
again.
me on that one.
Yeah, say that
So,
again.
so the 1,200 hours, in essence, at our top pay rate could equate to around $20,000.
Right.
So for employees hired after September 2nd, you're only going to be paying 50%. So that, in essence, is going to take that down to about 10,000. Well, 288 hours is even less than 50%, so 50% would be like 600 hours. So bringing it down to 288 is going to knock that down even more.
That 1,200 hours at a top rate at, say, 37 is actually $44,000. 1,200 times 37.
Okay. I might have done the math wrong, I'm sorry.
And that's why I've been, the numbers weren't, they,
Right. I must have done, Yeah.
that's why I've kind of been lost with you.
I stand corrected, yes.
She has a cheaper phone than you.
So can you make the first part, you're saying you want to leave the first part so that they get, anybody that's been here gets it. The second half, you're giving two options, or can we cut it down to one option?
Well, I think what you're saying is prospectively, leave it alone for those who are in place.
Yeah.
So now you're on category 2. What are we going to do for people who are newly hired? And are we suggesting that they be bound by the 2 rules? The one that cuts it in half, and then the one that further limits it to the number, the cap number?
Yes.
So anybody going forward is bound by the 2 levels of inroads. So they know that when they arrive, this is your benefit.
That is my suggestion.
So in essence, if the new employees have the max 1,200, you knock that in half and down to 600, but then you have this extra rider that says no more than 288, so it goes down to 288. If all they have in their bank is, say, 400, it gets knocked in half down to 200. It's under that threshold, so they'll get their full 50%.
The second level
But
does
if-
not apply.
But if they're at 600, they still only get 288.
Right, so they'd lose
Correct.
out on
Correct.
like 18 hours.
Right. I would support that.
Okay.
So
me
kind
too.
of consensus sounding, it sounds like you want to make this 288 limit just for the people hired after September 2nd. So instead of the in no case shall any employee, it would just be employees hired after September 2nd, have that additional limitation.
Good.
Is that kind of consensus?
Consensus.
Should we bring that language back?
Please.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Next, moving on to, non-contractual wage reimbursement table.
So with the changes in positions and the building official employment agreement that we have on the agenda this evening, it necessitates a change in our non-contractual wage reimbursement table. Susan, when she was here, in essence, did everything and was a full-time position, building official, code enforcement officer, and building clerk. The position that we have now, the offer that we have for Tracy this evening is for part-time building official. So we're splitting the positions out and then separating the code enforcement officer and building clerk as well. One other change that I have is just a name change under the Treasurer's Department from accounting clerk to accounting assistant. Little too many positions with the word clerk in them, so it gets a little confusing.
Can I get a motion to
Well,
approve?
oh,
Let's get a motion to
Yeah.
approve. And
So
then we can
moved.
discuss it.
support.
All right, questions on it?
I just was looking at this column that says that the hourly rate and the maximum is 38 for the building inspector, and then you go down. But at that rate there, does that, if you give them that rate to begin with, doesn't that restrict them from getting any higher?
If in the future we want to give raises, we can change the table. If you want to change the rate and raise it up at this point, we can do that as well.
Okay, I was just wondering, you had to start at 25, and then you went up to 38, 15, you went to 20. And what was the other one? The clerk was 13, 15 max.
Minimum
But
is
I'm just-
16.
The minimum was 15?
Minimum wage to $16 an hour for the building clerk.
So you don't give them any any way to go up. They're tied in right there.
These are consistent with both the offer that we have on the table and the pay for the other positions within the office.
I guess I'm going to ask the usual question. How does this affect the budgets? Are you going to try to utilize the same budgetary amount that we've had to
Yes.
break this up? Okay.
So any further questions on the non-contractual classification table? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Callahan?
Yes,
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Merchant?
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to building official employment agreement.
So in your packet, I've provided the information for you regarding Tracy Calick for building official position. Per our charter, one of the things that's required is that commission approve all department heads, and that is why we are here today for this. And I think you've all had the opportunity to meet Tracy. He comes with, I think, very good recommendations, working both in East China and Algonac as their building officials right now.
And do you think you can get all this done in 10 hours a week with, like, all the inspections for rentals?
I think it's definitely manageable.
All right. Just asking. But I noticed we're starting at the top. I think that's what you were getting at. We're starting at the top of the pay. It's just-
There's nothing that prevents you from changing the wage classification table at any time. Normally, we try and do it in conjunction with the budget, so it probably will be revisited then, if not sooner.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that 38 per hour is for office, for his time.
Correct, that would be for the 10 hours, and then his wages for the plan review would be the 75% of the permit.
Based on the permits.
Correct.
Right.
It's
So-
not overlapping, it's,
Right.
in essence, two separate issues.
Are we in line with the other communities surrounding us?
And you have good experience here, which I think we need. Despite,
And you seem
Exactly.
very personable when you came around to see all of us.
Yeah.
I did call a couple of the neighboring communities,
Yep.
and they were raved about you, so, Elginak and East China, so,
same,
no.
same here, recommendations were good.
So at this point, just looking for a motion to approve Tracy as the building official.
So moved.
Support.
Any other questions on this? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Clausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Merschman,
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan,
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Cowell.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Next, moving on to paving bids.
I've got Dave Newmer here with Wade Trim to review the bid proposal that we received and talk about that.
As Levin mentioned, my name is Dave Newmer with Wade Trim, and we've been helping to put together the bid proposal for the paving projects on Ward and North Market Streets. We did do a bid opening earlier this week. We received 3 bids on the project. The low bid came in at $113,582.50 from James P. Contracting. This is a contractor out of Washington Township. I've done several projects with them in different communities. As a matter of fact, they just finished a project for me in Harrison Township just this last week, and they did a very nice job. We've had good success working with this contractor. I think they'll do a very good job for you. So we are recommending that the city go ahead and award the contract for them. One addition that I will add that's not in my recommendation or my memo to you that came up today, I was speaking with the contractor, and they made a recommendation that we consider changing the material for the wearing course on the asphalt. The material that we've got specified is very good structurally, but it's got more of an open surface, so it's not going to look as smooth and clean maybe as you're used to. So they recommended going to a different material. They did provide us with a price for that. I saw the actual invoices from the asphalt company, so I know that it was an actual price. And actually, then they knocked $1 per ton off after that. If we were to go to this better material that's going to give you a better look and a better finish, it would be an addition of about $4,000. So if the commission is interested in that, we would recommend that you award the contract and then also allow that extra $4,000 for the increase in the paving quantity.
What's your life cycle on these?
This is going to be an overlay project, so we're going to be milling off 2 inches and replacing 2 inches. This pavement is going to last, well, it really depends on what the maintenance is going to be, but it's going to last 8 to 10 years. And then if you go through and crack seal it and periodically keep the water out of it, you're going to extend the life period on it. If at 5 or 8 years in that range, you look at putting maybe a seal coat on it once again, tighten it up and keep the water out of it, you're going to extend the life again. So the initial life of the pavement is probably 8 to 10 years, but then depending on the maintenance that you do to it afterwards, you can greatly extend it past then.
One of the things too was, do we have any drains or any issues with any of the drains in those areas that need to be repaired first? Okay. What about, we did one last year and we had some issues with water laying in it and we still haven't resolved that. Hopefully we won't have any of those issues. Do you have something built into this in the event we have issues, that we have some way to resolve it and make sure that we get this job done the way we want it?
So you're getting toward asking if there's like a warranty on the project. With this being an overlay project, the contractors really can't issue you a performance warranty for the pavement because they're placing new material on top of existing or old material, and they can't really warranty what that existing base material is going to do over time, if it's going to move or anything like that. They can warranty to you the workmanship that they're putting down, and they can warranty to you the quality of the material, the asphalt that they're placing. And, as it's being constructed, the DPW will be out there watching the construction, working with the contractors, checking the load tickets to make sure they're getting the right materials from a certified plant, making sure that the pavement gets rolled and compacted appropriately and those types of things, so that we know that the material and the workmanship are correct. Beyond that, if there's a change in the base or if there's something that happens with the stability of the pavement, that's really outside the contractor's control.
Well, what happened in this respect was right after we had the paving done, and it was just in one section. The water lays and it doesn't drain all the way to the drain.
Okay.
So it stays there all the time.
Yeah.
I believe that Mike's talked to Dave a little bit about that situation,
There was-
and
there
there's
was-
more going on there than just the pavement.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and I did have a chance to speak to Mike about it. I can tell you that this particular same contractor, just finished a project for us in Harrison Township, and there were 2 small bird baths or depressions on the road where it was collecting water, and they're going to go back and repair those. They're going to heat it back up, pick some material into it, and fix it. So things that are a workmanship type issue that they will come back and address, and we've had good luck with this contractor doing those things and coming back and making repairs.
Okay, because that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
All right.
Got something to add, Mike, or? Okay. Yes.
For this new material that's being recommended, other than looks, how does it compare to what we've called out for bid? Is it as far as compression strength, permeability for moisture? Is there any change, any difference between the two?
Structurally, they are the same. So load-bearing capacity-wise, they are the same. The material that we have spec'd out is more of what we refer to as an open-graded material, which means that all of the aggregate in the pavement is of a similar size. So there's not a lot of small fines that take and fill in the gaps. So you get more of a rough look, a rough finish to it. It can be more of a rough finish, like if you have, children roller skating or biking or wherever, if they fall and skin the knee, it might be more of a rough finish from that respect.
How does a smoother finish help or hurt when it comes to ice buildup and snow buildup on the road?
With that rougher open graded material, you are going to get more water puddling in small amounts in the road, and it can tend to build up in time. It is going to retain dirt and dust, from traffic. It is going to retain road salt, things like that. So the smoother finish is going to help to keep those minerals out of there and keep the water out of there, and I think it will marginally extend the life of the pavement.
The smoother actually melts off better, too.
Smoother is going to melt off better,
The
correct?
salt application on it.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So I would like to mention a little bit about the budget. So when we were doing the budget back in April, we had put in an application for grants, and one of the things that we were hoping is that we were going to be able to do quite a bit of roads and getting grants to pay for half of it. We obviously did not get those grants, so the money that we have budgeted for roads was, I around like 107,000. So looking at this project, if we do say not to exceed 120, we would just need to do a minor budget amendment for that. I know that you guys had expressed interest in doing a couple of roads this year, and knowing going into it that we would probably have to do a little bit of a budget amendment. Talking to Mike about the bids, they came in really close to where he had anticipated, which is favorable. And one of the other things that we had talked about is doing it this year versus next year. I know everyone kind of wanted to get another set of roads done this year. You can see from the quotes that really it was no impact on the bids, whether they can do it this year or next year.
Is there a chance of getting them done this year?
Yes, sir. I talked to the contractor today. They want to get started on it in the next week to 10 days, and they figure it's probably 4 to 5 days worth of work. So weather permitting, they do intend fully to get the job done this year.
Do we need to do, memory serves, last year we did a separate, I don't know if it was a full-out survey or engineering study for what was existing, so that when they actually laid the asphalt down, it got, in theory, put down correctly, and we got the right slope and hump into the road. Do we need to do that this year?
I think that was already done as part of the bid docs,
Right.
so it's all set. So in essence, what we'll be looking for tonight is a motion to approve for James P. Contracting not to exceed, I think 120 would be sufficient, that improved material. And I think in the future, we'll make sure that any bids, we make sure that we quote that more consistent material with what we have in the city.
I will make a motion that we approve James P. Contracting for a price not to exceed $120,000 to proceed with the road work using the contractor recommended asphalt mix.
Support. Motion, support. Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Merchant,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond,
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. And I don't know if you were involved with this next item, Dave, if you want to stick around, the South Water Street sanitary sewer. Was Mike, was he involved in that at all? Maybe he'd be able to answer some questions if we have any technical questions that come up. So the next agenda item is an issue that we have with the sanitary sewer down on South Water Street. From the photos, it's kind of hard to tell because they're kind of copies of copies and not in color. Maybe Mike can come up and explain this a little bit better since he's very involved with it. But in essence, what happened is 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, pilings were,
driven through a tenant sewer.
yeah. So we're left to clean up and correct the
Yes.
problem that we have.
So you
right
don't have
now.
the color pictures?
No.
Okay. This is down at 1348, I believe, Southwater Address.
Passing them out this way.
You got 'em over there?
You can pass them that way too, so they can take a look.
This is a sanitary manhole built underneath the boathouse. This is the tenant sewer with the wooden piling that's
Can't see in
tied
there.
back to the seawall.
Oh, that big.
So this is obviously something that
They stopped.
predates most of us, and
Yes.
and I think, Mike, you said you were probably a kid back when this was done?
This boathouse was there when I was a kid. So it's for a long time, this has been like this. And the only reason why it came about now is because of the high water. The water got up into the road, started filling the gravel into it, and plugged it solid. And the only way we found it is we started jetting, could get past 320 feet, went up to the high side, sucked it down, found the manhole going, the lead going towards that corner of the building, and excavated a hole, and that's what we found. So the boathouse is roughly 40 feet long. So we went back to where we thought it came out back into the road and found it, and we can put a 22 on right there, abandon the part that's underneath the boathouse, and go to 60 to 80 feet, tie it right back in the manhole. And I still have the hole open up up there right now. We've been pumping it down every 2 to 3 days when needed, and this has gotta get done. We got about 8 to 10 homes on this sanitary that's being affected right now.
How long will it take them to repair?
He thinks he'll be in there for probably a week. It's a small, tight area. It's, the road's 20 feet wide.
Yep.
And but the biggest problem is gonna get the residents to park outside the work zone and, we're trying to accommodate everything we can for them to make it easier for them to get in and out, but we will pass out letters, let them know when they're gonna start, what times they can get through, and try to make it most convenient as we can for them.
Right? Well, I went down there, anyway. Down at the seawall, right opposite this, it seems to be undermining by the seawall. He's not gonna come after.
No, that's his problem.
Right.
Down there. He
Yeah,
ripped
he's
all
not
his
gonna say we
cement out
did
because
something
it
now.
was falling in.
He's lost his fill there at the.
No, I have the hole opened up underneath his boathouse yet on that corner, but we did build a wall, 4x4s in there for right now until we can get in there and
Shoring.
short.
I just wanted to make sure that he knew he didn't, we're fixing our sewer, his is his own problem.
Yep.
Yeah, this is something that I did have conversations with Mike at the time when it was discovered, whether this was considered an emergency and under my purview. We talked about it extensively and felt that it is something that we could wait to bring to the board for approval. Obviously, one of the things that we would need to do is waive competitive bidding and get this taken care of so that we can move forward and get this repaired before it does truly become an emergency. One of the reasons why they can't really do it is because there are structural issues with the building and really need to bring a professional in for this. They will be assisting, as per the quote that you saw in there, with the
Our vac truck
tech
and
truck, yes.
any other materials they need. Because right now we got probably 85 feet of bad water in there, and we gotta suck it out, maintain it clean for them so they can pay that pipe and everybody be safe.
And this
And,
does,
Are you taking that piling out?
I'm not, that piling holds that seawall in.
That's what I was saying.
And then 8 feet south of that, or 8 feet north of that, I believe there is another piling in there too. So that's why we're going back on the other side of the boathouse, coming out, so I'm not underneath that boathouse at all, and I can bulkhead both ends, get everything secured, be done.
You're gonna do a bypass.
Yes, 22, right in the road, just outside the boathouse. So we're trying to get away from that boathouse as fast as we can, and then that's the best place we can get away from.
And you're gonna wanna get this done before the ice starts flowing.
I want to get this done ASAP before,
So you need,
this
So
is,
you need a motion to waive competitive bids?
First. Yep, I'll make a motion to waive competitive bidding for the project at 1248 South Water Street.
Support.
Motion and support. Any questions on just waiving the competitive bids?
Roll call.
Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Buchanan,
yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Merchant,
Yes.
motion carries.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amount of $12,000 to Murray Underground Systems for the same address.
Support.
Any questions on this one? Hearing none, roll call vote
Mayor
again.
Vandenbosch,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Merchant.
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I was trying to mention before you went into that, but this is just for the construction only, and this is not the repair of the road. Okay, so we have to address that issue at a later date, because I think they're gonna want that road repaired all the way up to the next driveway, which is another 50 feet away.
well, and I think kind of dealing with that. We'll be calling the infrastructure subcommittee back together to talk about a next road improvement project now that we have the final number for these two and approved, and taking that into consideration.
And you'll want some settlement time on this repair anyway.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, I was thinking that since we have a contractor in town, if he can give us a good price on it, get up there with his roller, his 2-ton roller, and roll the heck out of it and maybe get it done then.
Are you gonna get into the condos where, that's all cemented where the condos are?
We're not going into the cement part. We're staying away from both
Stay
sides of
asphalt.
cement. We're staying right in asphalt.
Right. Thanks, Mike.
And also, I would like to thank the commission for all your support you've given me in the last 2 weeks. Appreciate it, and thank you.
All right, moving on to ordinance 2019-11, garbage and refuse service hours. Introduction and first reading.
Well, this comes before you because we've had a number of complaints about waste hauling trucks that are coming and emptying very early morning hours, like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Working on our M-Terra contract, we did finalize the agreement with them, and the hours are no earlier than 7 a.m. Directing the police chief to go and deal with the noise complaints. We don't really have a good option in our ordinances that really addresses this. And I was working with the attorney to try to develop some language that would be effective for dealing with this issue, and that is what you have before you today.
How did we come up with 7 a.m.?
It's consistent with our M-Terra agreement for our residential garbage.
It's also our noise ordinances.
It's the same as,
Right, but
yeah.
the one that is doing it that I know of at 6 o'clock in the morning is commercial.
Therein lies the issue. So we want to govern everybody at
Okay,
the
that's
same
what,
time.
because you're talking residential, and I'm saying,
Yep, you're right.
right.
So the point here was to govern everything at 7 a.m.
Yeah,
If you
waste
read the
management-
language, it's pretty broad.
Yeah, waste management's been in as early as 4:45 in the morning,
Yeah, that's not right.
yeah.
I mean, I'm up, but I'm sure some
Yeah.
people.
You'll be up after that.
So any other questions on this?
My only concern, I mean, I understand the noise, because my dumpster gets dumped really early, is that if they come later, then my parking lot's full and they can't get to my dumpster. You know, that's the issue. I mean, if they come rolling in at 7 a.m., I don't have an issue, but if they don't like this and don't come into our town until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there's going to be a lot of dumpsters that don't get dumped. So,
Well, then those owners will have to not pay their bill.
Other communities that.
and then you don't get your
we-
dumpster emptied, and then you're in a whole nother situation.
We have found when we move the time, they're there right at 7:01.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, it's, 7 a.m.'s good.
So I need a motion
Just to approve the first reading.
to approve the first reading.
I'll make a motion, we approve the first reading of ordinance number 2019-011.
Any other questions on it? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan?
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Merschman?
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Yes.
Mayor Emmett?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on to board vacancies. This is just an announcement for the board vacancies. We have one vacancy on the zoning board of appeals, one on the Tifa board, one on the board of review, and 3 for the historical commission. So, anyone interested, please get your applications to Chris at the clerk's office by November 24th, Monday.
Who's the
Thank
zoning
you.
board vacancy? Did we ask that already? Did I ask that?
It's a renewing seat, so we have to put it as a vacancy.
Oh,
Are the other Board of Review and TIFA and all that?
All of them are renewing vacancies except for TIFA, TIFA and Historical Commission, we have had a vacancy and we're still waiting to fill them. The other ones are just renewing their terms.
Cool.
I'm hoping the applicants will renew.
Okay. Next, moving on to Commissioner request for information form.
This was provided at a previous meeting, I think during the commissioner privilege by Cheryl Verkaman, and added as an agenda item for discussion and potential moving forward with this.
Well, I came up with this form. I mean, we just have to put a handle on the continuous requests of information that costs taxpayers a ton of money, and it is, if any of us here request information, then that information should be shared with all of us. Because if it's necessary to make decisions, then we all should get a copy of it. And I think that the requests for information have just gotten out of hand, and this is my only way to try to put a handle on it, unless somebody has any other suggestions.
No, I don't think that, if I want to ask a question to the city manager, I go in the office and talk to her.
So do I.
So, and everybody that does that seemed to be working all these years, and all of a sudden, we want to,
It's not talking to the city manager. It's requests for information that require city employees to spend time and effort and take away from their jobs.
it's informational. If I want to know something that I think a commissioner should know, and I ask, I should get it.
Even if it means, but if it's specifically just for you, and
It's
if
not
you need that
specifically for me.
information, then we all
It's
should
shared
get
with
that
everybody.
information. Then we all should get that information.
I don't think anybody's saying that you shouldn't get it. The problem is if you do this type of process, from what I see, you're going to tie everybody's hands. And from what I see, it's going to have to go on an agenda, and then it's going to have to be verified by 2 commissioners. I don't know who that is and why they should decide. But everybody has a job to do. Everybody gets elected. Every community goes through the same issue. If you don't get enough information in here, then we have to go to her to ask for more information. I, for one, won't make a decision unless I've got everything that I can find. Now, I'll do a lot of research online myself, but if it comes down to where I need some information like when we had the 1,200-hour issue, one thing that did fall out of that, not to mention how much we paid so that we could all be informed, but another thing that I found through there was that we, on occasion, paid somebody that wasn't eligible because they didn't have 10 years in. So the only time, if you have a lot of information, which is the one request that y'all got mad at, she has the authority to force it into a FOIA. But on a whole, there isn't a city or community around here that would tie the hands of every board to force you through this much rigmarole to get information to do your job. Because that's the way I read this. You've got here that it's got to go on an agenda, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to take more of our time, that it's going to have to go on an agenda. And then who decides the 2 commissioners to verify? Who decides that one? I mean, to me, it just ties your hands. Then I guess I'd have to say, you can't limit that just to the commission. Now you're going to have to do that to every board we have. And we have a lot of new people on these boards, and new people need information. They don't know all the stuff that's here. So the only way you know it is to go ask for it. And most of the stuff that you ask for are existing files and existing documents that really don't take much time to get. On occasion, there's one where they have to do some calculations, but you're always going to have that. But they're really not the stance that I think you think. Even I don't ask for that much. I've only asked for those 2 things recently. One was denied. So,
You don't ask for that much?
no. I go in and I talk to her. If I need a copy, I'll ask them for a copy. They make me a copy. You throw it in the copy machine, it does it all. Boom, boom, boom. If you want a copy of that, I don't have a problem with that.
But now,
That seems awfully simplistic.
Well, it is.
but we're also adding another layer to government, which is already too slow and too somewhat complicated as it is. Sometimes we overthink these decisions as it is. and government's just way too slow now, and you're gonna add another layer to it. And so we can't get a resolution for a city, a resident that may come to us, because we have to wait to get it on the agenda or verified by 2 other commissioners. I don't see this as a real useful tool at this
Well,
time.
the reason why I brought this up originally was because we had 2 department heads turn in their resignations, and one of the things that they had said was, you know, they felt that they were being micromanaged, that they were being nitpicked, and that kind of stuff, with the constant requests for information for their jobs, you know? And I'm just trying to prevent that from happening again.
One ended up going to another job for more money. Second one had retired already for the second time. So to say they left just due to nitpicking, I don't believe it wholeheartedly.
But we have a process for that. If any employee feels that strongly, we have a process in our policies and procedures right here for them to go to Elaine and work that out, right?
Even beyond that, we have a process where if for some reason they have an issue with me, they can come to commission.
Yeah, so I mean, it's covered there. One of the things too, like even for a FOIA request, you can't even ask the reason for the request on a FOIA request. City can't ask a person that. And yet, you know, and sometimes you'll get people from the community that want to know information from us, and we try to obtain it for them. But again, if I need information, I go to the city manager, and then she goes to the department head. So, but this is just going to tie your hands and trying to do anybody's job, including all, and like I said, you'd have to do this for every board.
I'm not sure if this would help at all, but and I don't even know if we can do this, but like if one of us have like a major issue, or if we have something that we know that we're going to be asking for a lot of information on something, if we can put that out to the entire commission and say, hey, I'm going in and I'm going to ask for this information, so that we all at least have a heads up that that's going to happen, so that we're not getting, so that the other 6 of us aren't getting blindsided by it. I don't know. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that, but I think that's a simple solution, I think, to maybe you know.
And all the commissioners
problem that
should
might
have
not be.
the information at the same time.
Pardon?
All the commissioners should have the information
Exactly.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that makes things very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Because when someone comes in and asks a question, then I can't talk about anything. Because, for instance, I meet with the mayor on the agenda prior to the meeting. How can I talk with him about items on the agenda if everyone has to have the information at the same time? I can't.
No, I think that makes sense.
So it's very difficult. You know, people want to come in and ask me questions about the agenda. You know, it's not requesting information. It's not getting really any more like documentation or information than what's in your packets. It's just talking about what's in the packets.
Well, with my emails, I check them every morning, and with the Rotary, and everybody, sometimes with Rotary, it's everybody, all of a sudden you'll get 8 texts saying the same thing, because this one got texted, this one, and it went through the whole circle. They all got the information at the same time. So,
I can't do that with a conversation.
Would it work on information requests if the city manager had some discretion or authority to determine when she believes, or the city manager believes, that the request for written information is extraordinary, and then she has the right to bring it to the board as a whole before she allocates the resources to carry out that information request?
Well, she has that authority. She
Yeah,
had that
ready.
authority the last time.
I understand that, but if she did, and she exercised it, but I don't know if it's written that way. But that's what we do. If she believes that it's an unfounded or improperly motivated excessive requests for written information, and it's going to cause an inordinate amount of staff time. Shouldn't she have the authority to say, I'm going to pause on that, I'm going to take it to the board, and we're going to determine if that information is really needed? Or is that, do you view that as an infringement on the requester's?
Well,
But she already has it, though.
she has the authority to throw it into a FOIA, which forces the person to pay.
I understand that, but throwing it into a FOIA for a request made by an elected official is not my favorite
No,
remedy.
and I did check into it, and they say it's a real gray area right now.
It's a very gray area right now.
Yes.
It's not my favorite.
Yes. And it's
Yeah.
difficult because we all have a job to do, and everybody thinks of this job maybe a little differently than everybody else. So you might want to ask for it, but I guess one of the points on this would be, say there was something in our packet, and we just got a couple things late. And say you had questions or you needed information like on the road there, I was going to ask for the bid specs because we didn't see them. I don't know what we spec'd out. I don't know what the contract was going to look like. But to do that with this process, I wouldn't be able to do it at the meeting that we're making the decision. I'd have to wait till a second meeting, and it's too late by that time to even do it.
I think if the commissioners talked to each other and went to each other, and I said it last week to the commissioners, and it wasn't to be mean or anything, but I said, you have new people on the board. You've got older people down on the board. If there's something that you might have think that's happening, talk to one of your commissioners, and they'll give you what answers that they know from the past. But it's just,
Or how
you
about
don't
this?
have to run to the city manager if you're talking to another commissioner about it.
But during public meetings is in essence when you have an opportunity to talk about what each of the 7 of you have learned and to bring the information all together at a meeting. You don't want to circumvent the Open Meetings Act
Right.
by talking about things behind the scenes.
Well, how about, here's one thing. Okay, say I ask for the bid specs, and I ask Elaine, she sends it to me. How about if we make a deal that if I get it, I send it to all you? That gets her out of the loop, puts us in the loop. Can I do that?
Well, I think if
Or
it's
not.
an agenda item
You can do that as
and there's
long-
documentation, it should be shared with everyone.
You can do that as long as it's a transmittal only without discussion.
Correct.
You don't send it out and say, hey, everyone call me and tell me what you
Yeah.
think.
Right.
No.
It's
So if you just
for
want the-
information to review.
Info only.
That-
Is that something that would work?
That way, everybody sees.
And usually it's in a file, and, or we can create a file and scan it in and make
And
a
I
file.
think tonight you could just agree to that. You don't have to. do it.
Yeah.
But
And that is some of the stuff that I have done in the past. I think the thing that bogs things down a little bit is a lot of the questions I get about, why are department heads doing this? Why is this going on? It doesn't have anything to do with agenda items or anything like that, and that's the kind of stuff that I don't need to know Mike's job. I trust Mike. Mike's doing his job. I can't be a city manager and know everything about a police chief, everything about the treasurer, everything about DPW, everything about the clerk. It's their jobs. They're hired to do the job, and there has to be trust there, and I trust them to do their job, and I think that's part of the thing that I get bogged down in, is a lot of requests asking about why things are being done. Doesn't have anything to do with an agenda item or documents or anything like that. And I think maybe that's something that we need to talk about.
So can we, are we saying we all just want to agree that if one of us go in to ask for some more information on something and we think it's
Written
something that-
information.
Right,
Let's do
right.
tonight written information
Okay.
and save the discussion for conversational information. So if, Bill, you go in and you request a document, take the burden of circulating that document to everybody.
Well, I would do that.
Well, do you?
Well, we're trying to take you out of the loop so you're not wasting your time. You
If you're
send
gonna
it,
email it to.
I have to email it to him, so I email it to everyone, and
Okay.
that's
Well,
what I
you
have
can.
historically done in the past.
Okay.
All right.
Is when I have someone that requests additional information on an agenda item,
Okay,
I send
so-
it to everyone.
So everyone will get the same information. There you go. And then we should revisit the other informational flow of information, where somebody just wants information from the city manager. How do we deal with that? We should deal with that another night.
Fair.
Yes.
I knew that. I knew
Yes.
that. I get a look when I know
Yeah.
you're ready to go.
Yeah, I was ready. All right, next we're gonna move on to staffing discussion.
No, Kate,
Oh,
Kate, you're right.
yeah.
Yes,
staffing
step
discussion.
H.
Huh?
You're right.
H, yeah.
Yep.
It has been a stressful month in the office with all of the changes in staffing occurring. It's proving to be difficult to fill the positions in the office with qualified people at the wages that we offer. I think we kind of saw a little bit of that tonight, and certainly in previous meetings when we were talking about morale in the office. We invest a lot of time and training in our employees and certainly value the knowledge that they gain on the job. It's far easier to keep the valuable, hardworking employees that we have than to try and find new ones, recruit them, train them. You have so much institutional knowledge in so many people. Like with Mary Ellen, we are losing 30-plus years of knowledge and trying to be able to fill that position. I've done so many interviews, and I won't get into specific details about filling that job, but I'm still working on it. And it's not easy to be able to work within the confines of the budget that we have to get someone with those qualifications. Going through this process and figuring out what people make and seeing all of the information on applications that I'm getting about what people are making in other jobs, putting offers out that are declined because it's not enough money has been a real eye-opening process. It's kind of put me in the position where I've needed to really assess the people that we do have and trying to do everything that we can to try and keep the good people that we do have. We have a couple people in our office that I feel are underpaid for what it is that they're doing. Our office clerk, Kathy Thomas, has been with us since 2015. She's done a phenomenal job. She is always willing to come in, cover when anybody has vacation, even short notice when issues are going on, sicknesses, things like that, coming in the office. She's recently picked up the cemetery job, and she's done an exquisite job of learning that. She started at $13 an hour back in 2015. She is at $13.75. I really feel a wage for that position should be $15 an hour. The other position that I think is far below where it should be is the clerk position. Chris has been in that position for a number of years. One of the things when she was hired in was, in essence, this expectation or promise that when she got her accreditation for the clerk's department, that she would get a boost in pay, which never happened. That was kind of during the kind of downturn in a way. And then back in 16, we did a wage study, and she was actually below the wages for the average for the wage study. She is currently at about $28,000 a year. I'm sorry, $48,000 a year. And the average.
It's a big issue, right?
What's that hour attack on that one?
That was a big
Currently around $48,000 a year. And back in 16, when we were looking at similar sized communities, the average was really around $53,000. I think she should definitely be closer to that $53,000. I would love it if we could get this taken care of before we potentially lose valued people that we really need to do everything that we can because we appreciate them and really need their skill set. It was very difficult losing Mary Ellen and trying to really fill that gap. The temporary agency that I'm looking at, because I still don't have any applicants that are willing to come here yet, is $100 an hour for the temporary wage. For the other position, the accounting clerk position, or accounting assistant now. That's $25 an hour through the temp agency. So these are the issues that I'm dealing with, and whatever you can do to support that, I would certainly appreciate, because I don't want to be in a position where I lose more people that have the knowledge that we really need in this office.
So why wasn't this addressed in 2016?
I don't know.
Well, I wholeheartedly support these pay increases. I mean, this, I know what I pay my staff in restaurant work, and paying somebody like Kathy and somebody like Chris what they're worth should be a no-brainer. So you have my support.
Elaine, so what are you looking for as far as pay increase again? So what would you, like, if we were to make a motion, what were you looking for?
Well, I would,
Let me interject something here, just so we don't run afoul. The issue before you is the categorical increase in the job position. This is not a review or an evaluation of the person in that position. It's a review of the categorical amount we're going to pay that position, which is what you were saying, the position. So it would be not appropriate to turn this into an assessment of the person in the position, because that would be a different issue that we should handle differently. So the form of the motion would be to increase the pay of the position.
But we also don't have any information on the surrounding communities. Came to this as a discussion, and I have no problem of people's net worth, but we also need to know what the surrounding communities, or at least
For that position.
for each position,
right, so I
to really change our tables.
Okay.
Because that's what you're actually looking for, is for us to change the.
not the tables, because it's within the pay scale for the tables. It's the current pay for the position.
You're not changing your upper limit in your box. You're moving within the box that you've already set. Nothing she's asking for goes above what's already in the scale of that position. She's asking for within that position to move it up.
So the most similar position for the clerk is in St. Clair, which is a full-time position, and they're making low 50s. And like I said, in 16, the average was like 53. And she's at 48, which is at like the low end. She has the accreditation. I don't know how or when you got the accreditation, but in 16, it never made it to my desk as a request.
Okay, in that, but we don't have a lot of information from the surrounding communities. That I'm still going to, we know what St. Clair's got.
And Algonac is a part-time position, so it's not really comparable.
Could you get us some of that and have it more prepared for the next meeting, and then?
Definitely.
For actual real numbers, so we can make a difference.
I would certainly be open to not just people we have, but also if you could get the information for the positions you're having trouble filling as well.
What are those position pay?
Because if we can't fill it, I'd much rather bump our pay up a little bit to be able to fill it, as opposed to have to pay really big money for a temp agency.
Good point.
Did you look at instead of an hourly rate, a salary rate?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Instead of an hourly rate, a salary rate.
What do you mean instead of an
For the
hourly?
temp, the temps have to be paid hourly.
We're not talking about the temps.
I'm not sure what your
hourly.
question is.
Like in some jobs, I know where I worked, you had a minimum range, a mid-range, and a maximum range, and your boss could use that whole range of a salary to figure out where you fell in and what you got. So he had that from this minimum to this maximum to give you whatever they felt they wanted to do. So that's what they do with a salary job.
Yeah, you multiply the hours and and weeks out, and our scale, in essence, the top end is 60 right now on our scale.
You gotta watch what you do in that hour, you ran into that situation, is you set an hour, you set a salary for a person, and then they wanna know how much that salary works out in an hourly wage. And then you get another person come in that's a bookkeeper or your treasurer, and they start going through contracts, the salary contract, and say, oh, no, he's not a salary contract, he's an hourly, because they asked what the hourly wage was. You know, you don't want to get into that either, it's either salary or hourly.
You know, the table, in essence, is an hourly equivalent. Some people are salary and some people are hourly.
Okay,
And that is based upon their agreement for employment.
more information
Yeah.
before we make a decision. And I don't know if anybody else is against that, but I think we need to
I think that's fair.
take a look at it.
Yeah. I think that's fair, and I can bring that back at the
And
next meeting.
and you can utilize back to our chart of wages so that everybody, this is in your budget book, so you can see. In fact, you go back to a couple of the budget books and see that, how things have changed. But I think since 2008, the big issue was the city didn't do anything because we struggled
Correct.
financially for a long time.
Yeah. And now we're struggling from a perspective of staffing.
Yeah,
So you want to set this aside to the next meeting?
till the next meeting. Let's move on then to the Michigan Uniform Video Service Local Franchise Agreement. Comcast.
Yes, so this is obviously a state franchise agreement form that is mandated by them, and we have to adhere to their sets of rules. One of the reasons why I wanted to add this tonight is because we have a month here where we've got a fifth Thursday, so we've got a little bit of a gap between tonight's meeting and our next meeting, and the clock is ticking for this agreement. We only have 30 days to get back to them with our agreement. One of the things that we actually have the option of changing is on, I think it's page 4, is the fee amount. Our current agreement has a 5% franchise fee, and I'm proposing to continue on with that 5% franchise fee. So I would just be looking for a motion to approve the agreement.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Comcast franchise agreement,
Support.
whatever it is.
Any other questions on it? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hendricks?
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan?
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Merschman?
Yes.
Commissioner Buchanan?
Yes.
Mayor Lindenbach?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to the city manager's report.
One thing that was left at your seat is information about an open house meeting for St. Clair County for updated preliminary flood insurance rate maps. Based on a meeting that we had this week for the emergency management manual, Justin Westmiller was down and we discussed this with him. He said that there will be no impact to Marine City. So you can, unless you're interested in things in the Port Huron area, disregard this open house notice. As I mentioned, the Emergency Management Subcommittee met, and Justin is going to be working on some upgrades to the manual, and we'll be moving forward with that. Held a department head meeting last week. The high water meeting is going to be planned for our meeting November 7th. Justin is going to be out, I think, with a couple of other people, and is going to do a presentation on the issues with the high water, what people could potentially do to deal with it, and expectations of what this winter may bring. If for some reason we feel the need for another meeting, he is more than willing to do that. However, he is going to be doing the same presentation to many communities, so when they get their calendar put together, I've requested that I get a copy of that so that we can let people know if for some reason they can't make our meeting, maybe they can make East China or Algonac or some other community. I attended the district court ribbon cutting ceremony, which was great. Now they have a separate isolated area where they can deal with the prisoners coming into the location, and also have the telecommunications all set up, so they have a much bigger TV and camera system so that they don't necessarily have to bring people down from the jail. I had a phone conference with our actuary regarding our pension funding levels. There will be a little bit of a change on that this year as well, so eventually the pension board will get that information. I've been spending as much time as possible with Mary Ellen prior to her leaving. For some redundancy in the office, I've been spending time learning payroll so that we have a couple of people in the office that can deal with the payroll, but there is a lot more to do than that, of course. We're going to be having to do tax bills probably next month. More than likely, we'll be bringing the county treasurer down to assist with that. As I said, it has not been easy filling the position. More than likely, at some point, we are going to have attempt to bridge us between when Mary Ellen leaves and someone new coming in. I think that's all that I have for that.
Questions for the city manager? Yes, Lisa.
I got a few. Sorry. I had a call, and I think they called you and our police chief about the corner of Chartier and King with the safe routes to school. There seems to be some real scary happenings down there with the parents trying to get their kids across that intersection. We have the walkway. I think people don't understand, if somebody goes into that walkway, you have to stop the car. But they have the blinking red lights and they have the buttons, and a couple people almost got hit over there. So they're kind of asking if early in the morning or later in the afternoon, if maybe they can monitor a little bit to make sure we don't have any, because people are afraid now to use the button and afraid to cross because they've had a couple near misses. Now, I know this individual that called me also called our police department and let them know, but
Yeah, I don't necessarily know what to do about that to inform people on how it works, because a flashing red light means stop.
Why doesn't the school
So-
put a crossing guard there?
I think schools, for the
You know,
most
with the
part,
stop sign?
I
Like
think
when we were
schools, for the
kids?
most part, cut back on that with funding cuts.
yeah,
Lady with the big.
yeah.
The big stop sign.
They're volunteers. They don't get paid.
I don't know if maybe we can put a sign that says that you got to stop if they're in the
I mean, a
cross.
flashing red light, anybody that has a driver's
Yeah.
license should know a flashing red light
Well,
means stop.
they're not.
I'm surprised.
We'll-
So,
We'll get some enforcement to
okay. That's
hopefully
one
keep
thing.
an eye on that and maybe get people trained, but there's not a lot I can do. More signage isn't gonna help because it's the law and any driver should know the law.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure, I mean, we put a thing for safe routes to school, and right now it's not real safe for the kids to get across there. Next one is, somebody asked me, are we going to be looking at the marijuana ordinance soon, since the state has got the requirements and everybody's starting to move? Are we moving forward on that?
That would be up to the commission if you want to direct us to work on any type of ordinance.
I thought we did. I thought we did originally.
There was a deadline for planning, to go to planning within the next
Yeah, you were gonna send
year.
it to your planning commission within a certain time period.
Okay, so can we,
You would have to put it on the agenda, and then you would make a recommendation down to your planning commission, if that's what you wanna do.
We can get it on the next agenda for discussion.
But there isn't a lot of movement yet.
oh, yeah, there's been quite a
Who?
few.
Which cities?
Muskegon, there was just another one in another spot. Somebody posted it, that they're all starting to move and put,
But
Is this
the
movement, or is
communities,
this the state law that has now taken effect?
The state law, they finally issued their regulations, which allowed communities to formulate ordinances. There's enough information now, if you wanted to pass an ordinance, there's enough information to deal with the setbacks and the distances from schools and the distances from churches and all those other those are out now. So communities who had waited until the regs came out are starting to send the issues to their planning commissions. That's what's happening.
yeah, I've seen a couple of them.
because I haven't seen any that have actually lifted their probe
No.
there.
In fact, the list of those, that list was reissued 2 days ago. If you want a current list of who has adopted a prohibition ordinance, I can email that to everyone. No, I just emailed it to you. Tomorrow, I just pulled it offline today because I was waiting for a community to make it on the list. It's a good 11 pages long, single, of all those who have an ordinance similar to yours in place.
That's prohibiting it right now.
Correct.
Because there hasn't been a lot of movement yet.
It's starting.
Yes.
It is. Yeah, I've seen a couple articles already out. I'll see if I can find those articles. and-
But they still haven't even finished putting enforcement for
Right.
driving
Your-
or
your-
UIDs.
Your next move under what you did would be for this body to say, okay, let's have our planning commission start looking at it. But that would be up to you. You don't have to do that. You reserve the right to do that.
Right.
Do we want to make that a future commission agenda item? Do you want me just to put it on Bob's list on my manager's report so that we have it there? And maybe as more develops, that'll be a flag so that we can say, hey, let's
Time to
start
trigger it.
talking about that now?
I think we ought to start talking about it. I mean, you know, it could take us some time to develop, so I don't think it's gonna hurt us to start talking about it.
Well, New Baltimore's been working on one, and it's been, I think they've been working on it for 2 years,
Yeah.
and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna take time. So I'm just asking because people are starting to ask in the community.
I think maybe as a next step, what we could do for the next meeting is just provide some of the information
Sure.
regarding some of the
I have
rules
all-
and regulations the state's put forth, just as part of communication.
I can give you an update. I have all the information.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, the other one is, since we talked about the paving, and I know you're here, the West Boulevard issue. I mean, we have 4 areas that, water pools. I mean, I took pictures of them. Well, there's one that officially made their complaint, but there's actually 3. The other people down on the other end, there's one on each side. I got pictures. And then there's one on the far end at the corner of Bell River and the road where the corner is. So, I'm just asking, did you have somebody out to look at it, or?
I've been working with Mike on this. I don't have anything to update at this point, but it is
Okay.
certainly something that we're still working on. There was an issue that we were talking about that isn't actually the road, it's something else that's causing problems. Once I get something, I can update the commission on it.
Okay, all right. Did we ratify the PD contract? The union?
I believe so. I mean, that was quite a while ago.
Well, all I'm asking is because usually we get a copy of what's been finalized. So I hadn't seen it, so I hadn't heard, so I'm just asking. That's it.
I don't think I've ever provided it in the past.
The,
Final version.
they've always been provided, maybe not with you because this is probably one of the first times, I don't know if you've had it, but they're normally always provided to the
This is definitely
commission.
the second time that I've done it, and I've not provided it in the past. You know, you had the red line version and approved it, and we maintain a copy in the office.
They usually do both copies so that we have them, whether it's the PD or the other union. I've always gotten them. Just asking, it's just a file, so
Any other questions?
I mean, I
for the city
can
manager?
send an electronic copy out to everyone.
I'd
Final
appreciate it.
version.
Any other questions for the city manager? Hearing none, we're gonna go into commissioner privilege and liaison reports. Cheryl, would you like to start us off?
Yes, I would. After the September 19th City Commission meeting and the airing on Channel 6, so many of our citizens have voiced their support to me in person, via email, and phone conversations. Every citizen that I spoke to was 100% in favor for City Commission term limits. Term limits prevent abuse of power. Term limits promote the opportunity for future generations to get into the political arena and make change. The average term limit for a city commission seat is 2 four-year terms. Our citizens also want to see our city commission make positive strides in how we treat our valuable city employees. In an email to me, one citizen said, and I quote, I spoke to many people who couldn't attend the meeting, but watched it on Channel 6 and were thrilled. Another citizen said, "You guys need to know you have a great deal of support in the community." 2 other citizens spoke to me personally and said, "You said what all of us have wanted to say for years." Term limits might be difficult to address as they directly affect several members across several boards. However, to be progressive, the city needs to address the matter of term limits and how they would benefit our residents. Another thing that I wanted to say is, while driving around our city and walking and riding my bike and stuff like that, I think that everyone did a phenomenal job with the Halloween decorations and fall decorations, and I want to thank our mayor for putting up the corn stalks all around the city. I think they look great. It's very festive.
Mr. Claus?
Oh, like I said before, I think that we need to get it back on board and not chastise members of the board and try to work together. I know I'm coming to the end of my term, and I'm questioning whether I want to be on this team now. So it's just, I just don't like the way it's going. Thank you.
Just want to let everybody know that we got Halloween coming up here pretty soon, so please be careful that night. You have a lot of little kids running around, a lot of adults running around. We have trunk or treat going on over at Bower Rose that night, so I think there's a couple of places downtown that are probably going to be trying to do something too. So everybody go out and have fun and be safe.
Let's see. We had the fire authority meeting. We are purchasing a new engine to replace an engine, which we're required to do. They're just going to start building it. It's going to come in at $380,000, which is a super steel for a brand-new engine. We also got the battery jaws with that, a couple other things. And with the truck that we're going to we'll have that, it's up for sale, and we have a lot of potential buyers on it, so that's going to help us with paying off the other one. So it's looking like hopefully sometime in November or so, we should.
Probably closer to December.
December, yeah. We'll have the new truck, so when we get that, we'll let everybody see it. And Halloween thing too, watch out for the kids. It gets dark early, and a lot of people don't stop at the stop sign, so be careful crossing anything, but just be careful, all the little kids, and the big kids, they have a good time too, so.
Nothing.
Nothing? Well, since this has been a long one for me, I'm starting to get fidgety. I think I was going through getting the hives. We haven't had a long meeting in a while, so I just wanted to thank Mary Ellen and Susan for their service. It's sad when employees go, but it is the nature of the beast. In today's economy, people move around a little bit more than they used to. My dad worked 45 years for the same employer, and today that doesn't happen. I want to give my condolences to Mike, and he's had a pretty rough couple weeks, and really sad to hear what you've been going through, but tomorrow is always a better day, and people are in better places. So with that, Halloween is coming up, and they will be handing candy out here at the fire station, and hopefully I'm up in a tree bow hunting. I've had enough with Halloween and pumpkins, corn stalks, and I want a vacation. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.